Good morning, everyone. Before I begin my statement, I just need to make a quick correction. Yesterday, we were given information that the child was 5 years old, and then obviously, after the investigation has been completed, now we know that he was actually 4 years old. So I just want to make that quick note. Thank you. Okay, so as Jose was saying, yesterday morning, Glendale Police Department received a call for service about a shooting to a subject, to a child, in the area of 68th Avenue and Windsor Boulevard. Our officers responded at around 10:17 in the morning and found the child who had suffered a gunshot wound to the chest. Our officers immediately provided life-saving measures. The Glendale Fire Department and Phoenix Fire Department responded, and the child was transported to a local hospital. Everyone in the home was accounted for and cooperated. Our officers began securing the scene and preserving evidence. Our detectives responded to the scene and obviously assumed the investigation. We had detectives from the Violent Crimes Unit as well as the Child Crimes Unit respond. Through the investigation, it was learned that the child was in bed and there was a firearm in the bed. He reached over underneath a pillow, and then an accidental discharge is what occurred and struck the child. So after that, the adult that was with him in the bed, contacted the other adult. They began calling police, and that's when we responded, and our detectives, investigated this case. It's a tragic incident. It's very sad, but the child received medical care, and as of yesterday afternoon, he was stable and expected to survive. The father of the child, who was there present, has been identified as Kevin Lavelle Rhymes, of 44 years old. The girlfriend to Kevin was identified as LaQuasha Lachelle Sebastian, 31 years old. Our detectives were able to conduct a thorough investigation, and both persons have been transported to the Glendale City Jail. They were arrested and are facing charges. The charges include child abuse and child endangerment, and then one charge of misconduct involving weapons. Both are actually having their initial appearance right now as we speak over at Maricopa County. Okay, it's just a terrible case, like I was saying, and it's one of those cases where we just want to stress the practice of gun safety, and securing firearms in a safe location. There's many methods, but ultimately gun safety is very important, and it's unfortunate this child was able to grab a hold of one and this terrible accident occurred. If there's any questions, I'm ready to answer them. Yes?
Were there other children in the home?
There was one other child in the home, yes.
Did that child get taken by DCS?
That information I don't have right now, but what I can tell you is that DCS was contacted. It's one very important detail that we do with these type of cases, and DCS was contacted, and they obviously conduct their own investigation. Yeah.
Can you expand a little bit on the child abuse charge? Was that just stemming from this case itself, or was that more in regards to the investigation and finding out more evidence?
Of course, that's an excellent question. So as the statute reads, there's a section there, like a subsection that reads recklessly inflict injury or endanger. So because of that portion, that's what the charge that applies to this incident, to this crime.
What type of firearm are we talking about here?
It was a handgun.
Okay.
Who was the gun registered to?
We don't know exactly who it was registered to, but LaQuasha is who claimed to own that gun.
Can you comment on what officers were trying to get to the vehicle yesterday in the driveway?
Well, as part of a thorough investigation, we don't know where evidence could be located, right? So there could be evidence in the home, there could be evidence in the backyard, in vehicles. Many times we find that criminals or subjects, persons, hide things or place things. So we wouldn't be entering a vehicle if it wasn't for a search warrant, and I know that detectives did draft multiple search warrants for this case.
And this child is in stable condition right now, is that correct?
Yes, according to doctors, he's in stable condition. Obviously, with any gunshot wound, it's very grave, right? It's very dangerous, but he is in stable condition and is expected to survive.
Were there did they have any gun safes in the home or anything to that effect in trying to ensure that the gun was out of reach of children, obviously, depending what happened?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and right now we don't have that information. We don't know if there was a gun safe or gun lock, but obviously for this incident, unfortunately, that gun was unsecured and accessible to children.
And then just a point of clarification here, 31-year-old girlfriend, is that the mother of the child, or is this just girlfriend of dad?
Just girlfriend of father.
Okay.
So does the mother of the child, is she involved in this at all or in the picture at all?
Yes, that's a great question. We spoke to detectives, asked that very same question, and they did mention that she has been contacted, is, in her own way part of the investigation, and DCS is obviously aware of that as well.
Does this couple have a history with Glendale PD, either individually or as a couple?
There is history of calls for service at that residence. That information is also included in the court documents, the Form 4, that we will be releasing after this press conference.
Why was Glendale PD at that home before?
Arguments, we had a 911 hang-up call, and then we responded to check welfare, and that's when we started having history with them.
Where were the adults at the time of the shooting?
The father was outside working on a vehicle, and the girlfriend, LaQuasha, was inside in the same bed as a child. They were about to take a nap.
I don't know if Form 4 will have this information, but did dad have anything to say for himself as to why he had, a gun right there in that location where little old boy was at in the bed?
That's a more finer detail about the investigation. At this time, needs to be kept. I don't want to say secret, right? I just kept under review, right? We investigate all possibilities. We investigate all avenues. But the Form 4 does have more information as part in regards to who owns the guns, where they were, and why.
We're going to release those right afterwards, and they're very detailed.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then I know you also touched on this, but again, a message to the community hearing this really horrible situation.
Oh, absolutely. Great question. And we always, would like to extend knowledge and tips and suggestions to the community, right? For this case, we have an incident, a tragic incident that occurred with a firearm. Someone was injured, a child was injured. It's terrible when anyone gets injured with a firearm, but in this case, it was a 4-year-old boy, a victim. And one thing we want to stress is to practice gun safety. And there's many ways to practice it, You can invest and purchase a gun safe. It could be as elaborate as a big one you keep in the garage or in a closet, or it could be a small one for just a single handgun. There's also gun locks that go through parts of the firearm that prevent it from being chambered or fired, as well as keeping the firearm and ammunition separate from each other. Keeping the magazines or whatever mechanism is used to feed the rounds into the firearm, keeping those separate as well. So there's many different things and suggestions and practices that can be used for gun safety, but it's something we always stress, and we as officers, obviously, we carry firearms, and we practice those diligently.
Where was the other child in the home at the time?
I do not have that information right now. I'm sorry.
Once again, guys, once we are wrapped up here, we will send out to your desks the 2 or 4 photos of these individuals. We really just want to get that message out, the importance of keeping these guns locked in a very safe environment. This child was in a bed with a weapon, and so that's not something we want to see or experience. It's also very traumatic for our officers who responded to this scene. As you can imagine, they respond to a lot of different crimes, and when they are crimes involving children, they are affected much more deeply when they see a situation like this. So once again, we appreciate all your coverage, and we'll get that stuff out to you as soon as we get back to our desks.